Hey everybody, thank you so much for tuning in to another one of my shows with me, William Wallace for America. And today, as you can see sitting next to me, is our Attorney General of Louisiana, Jeff Landry. Jeff, thank you so much for coming on there. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Well, everybody, it's funny when I go to these circles and stuff like that, and I hear all these good things about you. And, it's made me want to get to know you a little bit more. So I might ask you some questions that are a little basic because I really want the people of Louisiana at the same time to get a chance to know you a little bit more.
Sure.
So where are you from? What part of the state are you actually from?
So I was born and raised in St. Martinville, which is, of course, south central Louisiana, not far from Lafayette, kind of nestled between Lafayette, New Iberia, and Chaffalay Basin. Grew up there. My mother was a teacher and a basketball coach in high school. My father was an architect.
Middle income family.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Grew up during the all bus, was a latchkey kid. And
Yeah.
so, just all-American kid the way we grew up in the 70s and 80s.
Where'd you go on to college or anything?
So it's, I have an interesting kind of, I like to say I'm a road scholar, meaning I went to a lot of different universities.
Yeah.
I just kind of traveled the road. And actually I went to USL a couple of years after I graduated high school, because I didn't go right after I went into high school. I went into the National Guard immediately, and actually during high school. So I got in when I was in the National Guard at 17. My parents signed me into it. And then went to USL, got activated for Desert Storm, came back, and then worked on and off and finished my degree at USL. And then in that period of time, I started a business. And then when I sold the business, I then decided to go to law school, or actually in the process of selling the business, I decided to go to law school and start off at Southern's part-time program and then transferred to Loyola where I finished my degree.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's another good law school.
Yeah, great. I enjoyed both the law schools. They were great law schools.
That's fair. So, yeah, exactly. I hear nothing good things about both of them.
Yeah.
So you got your law degree, and I guess, and then after your law degree, what did you do?
So after I got my law degree, I really wasn't interested in practicing. Wanted to go back into business, which I did, but I ended up doing some practicing. I had a couple of offers where I did some work with some of the large firms around here, and then not long after is when I ran for Congress in 2010. And got elected to Louisiana's 3rd Congressional District, where I served the term until Louisiana lost a congressional district after the 2010 census.
Oh wow, okay. I almost forgot about that part of it. You were the congressman for a while.
Yeah. Represented all, probably 75% of Louisiana's coast.
Oh wow, that is a big area down there, and it's an important area. People forget how underrepresented that district can be. Not in a bad way towards anybody representing it, but how great the needs are of that community and how important it is for our state.
Yeah, one of the things that was interesting about that district actually had the largest number of Jones Act seamen, right? So sailors, people that were classified as Jones Act seamen in the country. Of all the congressional districts, that one had the most because it was offshore, right?
Exactly.
So everyone that goes offshore and works on a platform is considered and falls under the Jones Act. And so that's pretty interesting. People don't think about it. It's where all where the majority of oil and gas that comes into the state came from. Lots of ports, lots of issues like coastal erosion problems. The fact that our coast continues to.
Well, yeah, that's what I meant when I said underrepresented at the beginning. Is that there's it was wrong word, I guess, but there's a lot of needs down there, for that community.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you're very passionate about not only that community, but even Louisiana. So what was after Congress?
Well, after we lost a congressional district and they basically chopped mine up into 3, and I was unsuccessful in going back. I went back into businesses and practicing some law, and then I was, basically recruited by a number of folks who said it was time we switched helms at the Attorney General. That was an office I never really, I clerked here when I was in law school, but never aspired to be the Attorney General. But after looking at the way the office was being run at the time, and seeing the leadership that seemed to be lacking there. I said, this would be a great opportunity. So we put out a good platform. We went around the state telling people we were going to be an instrument of change, and we won, and I think we've done that.
So let's get into some nuts and bolts. What is the actual job of the Attorney General? But for those who don't really, I mean, it's funny because some people watching the videos, well, I knew that answer, but there's a lot of people who really just don't know and don't want to ask.
Well, the Attorney General is a constitutionally elected officer, so he's separate, and he is, under the Constitution, he is the chief legal officer of the state, which encompasses a lot because,
right.
Unfortunately, in today's climate, you can't do pretty much anything without falling under some sort of legal auspice. And
right.
And so, we've got a gaming division, a civil division, a civil litigation division, a criminal division. We have an admin division. We have a Solicitor General's office, which we created during our first term, and it was a promise that I'd made to the people of the state, which has done exceptional. And we appointed the first woman Solicitor General, actually the first Solicitor General Louisiana had. And people say, well, why is it important that we have a Solicitor General in Louisiana? Well, Texas had one for a long time. Some great Solicitor Generals. One of them you may know, Ted Cruz, was the Solicitor General of Texas. But the Solicitor General's office's job is to protect the people and businesses from government overreach and make sure that the government doesn't intrude or basically unduly encroach upon rights that people and businesses have. And so we've been great. I mean, I think we've gotten 13, we've won 13 of the 18 issues that we've dealt with in front of the United States Supreme Court, either through cases or through amicus briefs with a number of other attorney generals. And so that's kind of what we do here. We advise the legislature, we advise boards and commissions, we give opinions, a lot.
Yeah.
We got a lot.
Opinions are good.
Well, it depends. Depends if you like them or not.
Well,
everybody's got one.
What's interesting is that, when I interviewed Kyle Ardwin, he said that as a Secretary of State, one of his jobs is the keeper of the seal. When I interviewed John Schroeder, he's, the manager of the funds. So as Attorney General, do you guys protect our Constitution, or is there some unknown job?
No, exactly. That's what the Attorney General's office does.
Do y'all keep it in the drawer of the cabinet around here someplace?
The Constitution? Yeah. Oh, we got plenty of constitutional pamphlets around here. But yeah, that's what the Solicitor General's job is to do, is to ensure that we uphold the laws of the state when they're challenged from a constitutional standpoint. And we try to preserve and protect the rule of law.
What are a couple of the most important cases you've handled as Attorney General?
Well, I would argue that all of the cases that are brought to this office are important to someone, right? And to whoever it is that brought them. We have had a number of very high-profile cases that we have taken. One of them we took a couple of them we've taken to the U.S. Supreme Court. One was June Medical, which was upholding Louisiana's abortion law. That was basically the law under which, when the legislature came in and said, "Look, we are going to control the admitting privileges or require admitting privileges for abortion clinics," which is kind of, you would think, well, why would they have to come in and create a law? Because all other clinics, doctors have to have admitting privileges,
right?
But they had carved that out. That had kind of been carved out. So the legislature came in, passed a law. We took that law all the way to the Supreme Court. Unfortunately, the Supreme Court struck that down. Justice Roberts kind of flip-flopped on us. But that, I think, was a very, very important case. It was important to me because I believe in protecting life.
And that was a very pro-life move.
Well, I mean, it was a very pro-life law that we protected, which we attempted to protect.
But I'm glad you did that, because I'm also pro-life, and I can understand the value and the hard work that goes behind it, and that's one of the things that you did. I appreciate that. That's one of the good cases. Is there anything else that you might hang your hat on?
We went through a number of cases. We had a case under which, when Louisiana's 10-2 jury was struck down by the Supreme Court, there was a question as to whether or not the state would have to go back and retry everyone who had been convicted under 10-2 prior to that, which would have created a tremendous amount of havoc on our criminal justice system. I mean, think about somebody who was behind bars for, say, 30, 40 years for a very heinous, violent crime. And I mean, the witnesses may be gone now. Can't find them. The file may be, you might not even be able to find the whole complete file. You can't retry that case. That person would have walked out of jail free.
Do you think the people that were proponents of that might have been for getting more people out of jail, or flip or the opposite?
Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, there's been this big controversy over criminal justice reform and this theory that Louisiana has too many people incarcerated.
Right.
I think, unfortunately, our criminal justice system needs to be reformed, but the goal should be how we keep people out of jail, not how we let people out.
Right.
Right.
So it's a good way to put it.
It's a matter of how do we keep people from going to jail, okay, rather than willy-nilly just opening the doors and say, you go on and, we'll see you if you come back.
That would be like an overall plan, improving our economy, improving our schools,
and I think we've seen the results
system.
I think we've seen the results of that, and we've seen violent crime increase, we've seen crime of all aspects increase consistently
Right.
Around the state.
Well, and here's a little question for you I thought of to ask, which is, what do you think of is the greatest threat to our legal system here in Louisiana? Is there a threat to our legal system here?
Well, I think bad judges are the biggest threat to Louisiana's legal system.
That's a great.
When you have judges that basically, instead of, look, all you want you don't want a conservative or a liberal judge.
Right.
What you want is a fair judge.
Right.
That's what they're supposed to be.
That's by legislating their ideologies.
Right. But all a judge is supposed to do is take the law and apply the facts. 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
Make the decision based upon law and facts.
So how does your office protect the rights of the people of Louisiana?
Well, that's how we do it in defending those particular cases as those cases come to us.
So you'll keep. I mean, so there's always somebody on the radar. Obviously, you don't have the time to watch it all yourself, so you have a staff of people that,
we've got seven,
that do this?
We've got 7 directors that each director of each of the agencies that I mentioned earlier, and each of them have a different field of view, as you could say, as it pertains to the law in Louisiana.
Right. So all those 7 around, and then I'll bring to you the cases that you need to see and whatnot.
Yeah, they don't bring me all of the cases, but they've been working on them and they do a great job. And look, we've got a great staff here. They work real hard, and they're just great people, dedicated.
So let's talk about some of the hot topics that are going on in the area that when we talk about protecting the rights of people in Louisiana. What about these mask mandates that we see popping up?
I think the first problem is a mandate, right?
Yeah.
I mean, when you think about it, it's just using the word mandate, whether we're mandating masks, vaccines, mandating that you can only wear blue suits on Sunday, or whatever.
Yeah,
it is.
exactly.
The government, anytime the government mandates something, they're taking a liberty away from you,
right? Which
means they're taking a choice away from you.
Exactly.
Okay, and so that's what's the problem. What has confused me over this is that I thought that we entered this in a state of pandemic and pandemonium, into which we were concerned about a virus that was going to kill millions and millions of people.
Right.
In this country. That's what we were told at the very beginning. Thankfully, that hasn't happened.
Right.
Thankfully, we've got great doctors and nurses who work day in and day out all through all of the heights of the pandemic to do their best to keep people safe and to keep people in a position where they could recover from the disease. And some people haven't. I've lost a number of friends, unfortunately, to the virus. But again, the government should not be picking and choosing your choices.
Right.
And if you look at states that did not impose, like I was just with Governor Kristi Noem from South Dakota, and her and I were talking. Right now, South Dakota is growing, has a 9% GDP, which is above Texas.
Wow.
Okay? She mandated nothing. She educated all. In other words, she used her medical staff and the Department of Health in South Dakota to help put out information so that South Dakotans understood the effects of the virus and what they could do.
Right.
She didn't say, you have to wear a mask, you have to be vaccinated, you have to do this, you have to do that. We're going to close this business, keep this one open. And she said it eloquently. She said, Jeff, tell somebody who relies on paying their bills, who owns a small business, that their business is not essential. It's essential to their livelihood.
Right, exactly.
Right, but that's what we did. And we did it and we accepted it like it was something good.
Right.
But yet when you go back and you measure, look at states like California, Louisiana, everything we've done was supposed to make it better.
Right.
And yet we're not better. So again, I want us to approach challenges like this virus in a unified manner rather than a divisive one.
Right.
Well, guess what?
I like this.
When you tell somebody you must do this, that's not uniting them.
Right.
That's dividing them.
The minute you tell somebody they have to do something, the natural human reaction is, nobody tells me what to do.
Well, not only that, but it's like, well, why are you telling me that? Because look, I've always been taught, and in this country, it's the greatest thing about being an American is we should question everything.
Exactly.
Right? And so, we've gotten to, but in some kind of way, some politicians out there and governors around the country took the position that do as I say and not as I do. And yet you see them mandating a mask, and then you find them somewhere where not
There's
wearing
no
a
mask,
mask.
right.
Dr. Fauci was caught at a baseball game with his mask down.
Right.
I mean, like, you see what I'm saying?
Nancy Pelosi just had a fundraiser, no mask.
with no mask.
Yeah.
So again, those things are not uniting.
Right.
Right? They don't create bipartisanship. I mean, they don't create a bipartisanship environment. They create a partisan one.
Right.
Right. Whether it be between different parties or between different ideologies or between people.
Right.
So again, all of these hot topics, they're hot because the government is telling people what to do,
right,
rather than saying this is why we think you should do this.
Right. Educate people.
Which is the approach that we've always almost and normally taken. Let me put it this way. In this country, we've mostly taken the position, and Americans have been more prosperous, more freer, more safer when we've educated the masses rather than mandating to the masses.
Right. So is it the same philosophy for the vaccines?
Well, yeah.
Because now we're here. Again, now they got they got the approval from the government. They're really trying to come down on it.
Right. But look. Here's what I'm saying. I've never taken a position that the vaccines are bad. In fact, I've always said we should use all of the tools.
Right.
I just got off the phone with a doctor, and we were discussing that, how politics has now infected, politics infected sports, right? We had all of the kneeling and all this other. We used to be able to go to sports and you could sit down with a fan. You didn't care if he was a Democrat or a Republican or what his ideology was, or, what, you didn't care what he ate or drank or whatnot. No, you just talked about the game of football, game of baseball, game of basketball. But then all of a sudden, these athletes decided they wanted to take, I guess they couldn't succeed on the field, so they tried to engage in politics.
Yeah, exactly.
And ruin the sport. So now we hear with a pandemic, we're infecting the practice of medicine. Well, we're now telling doctors, well, you can't use this drug, but you can use this. And before the pandemic, doctors used off-label drugs if they saw an opportunity to help a person.
Right.
Right? So again, you go back to the vaccines. I'm not saying that people should not take the vaccine. But we should give doctors and patients the ability to decide between them what's good and best for the patient.
Right, exactly.
The patient is in charge of his health care, not the government.
Right.
So again, that's our position. I don't think we should be mandating anything. Some people say, well, we mandate the measles and the mumps and polio. Yeah, but guess what? When those vaccines were 10 to 15 years to prove out.
Right.
And guess what? They worked with like a 99% efficacy.
Right.
Okay? We were told when these vaccines came out in October of last year and started being used in December, this was going to do it.
Right.
This is going to cure us.
Right.
It was like it was the panacea
exactly.
for the virus. But yet, where are we today? Well, there's breakthroughs
we're back on
we
a
might
rise.
need a booster. So again, I'm not against the vaccine. People should be able to take the information in discussion with their doctor and decide whether or not they want to take the vaccine or not. We shouldn't have, some mayor saying I can't go eat in a restaurant if I'm not vaccinated. I mean, I don't want to follow the science. I want to follow the math.
And not only the math, but common sense. This past week at the Saints game, Monday night, you could not go to the only way you could go to the game is if you have a negative test. If you've been vaccinated, you have to wear a mask. But if you had not had a test and you had not been vaccinated, you could get vaccinated there at the door and go into the game right away. Mm-hmm. So how many people got vaccinated but had it, or spread it right away?
Well,
it's common sense.
That's a good point. The question is, we know that there are some adverse reactions to the vaccines for certain people.
Right.
So shouldn't the decision to be vaccinated be something that you at least consult with a medical doctor before? No, they just go on over there sticking people's teeth. Again, I just think it's irresponsible. I mean, it's an irresponsible way to get people, if you believe it's the right thing to
Right.
do, it's an irresponsible way to get people to do it. I mean, you think about the AIDS epidemic. We didn't mandate anything during the AIDS epidemic. The AIDS epidemic had a 100% mortality rate. Well, if you contracted
Right.
AIDS, you were going to die in 1985. There was no vaccine, nothing.
Right.
I mean, like, you were dead. There was nothing that was going to save you. But how did we conquer the AIDS epidemic? We did it through education.
Right.
Right? We
Exactly.
did it through uniting and saying, we're going to raise money, we're going to find, we're going to research, we're going to figure out ways to either slow the
Yeah.
rate of infection, the way to treat the infection.
Right.
We didn't do it by mandates.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's an excellent point. So do you think your office is going to see a rise in maybe lawsuits from people who don't want to be mandated for the vaccine? I mean, do you?
Well, we already saw one. We had a federal judge up in Monroe tell Vicom and the University of Louisiana at Monroe that they could not, that they must accept the exemptions. That's objections of some students wanted to file for an exemption from the vaccine. The judge says, yeah, you can't penalize them.
Yeah.
For not taking.
Because we're probably going to see a rise in lawsuits.
We
coming
are,
up
and
on that.
that's a great
Yeah.
point. But think about all of the wasted money and wasted time.
Right.
When all we had to do is give people a choice and educate them.
It all comes back to education.
Education.
And it's one thing that I think our state has lacked in some ways, but I'm glad that it's on your radar, because, your future for Louisiana, if we know that that's on your education's on your radar, then we know you got your heart and mind in one of the right places to improve our state.
Right, because I think the more you educate a person, the more they're able to.
So where do we focus our efforts when it comes to the lines, to those fine lines between personal freedoms, parental choice, our legal system, and those afraid of COVID? And it's kind of a two-part question here, and this is one of our last questions too. Is so like the mayor of New Orleans has shut down the city basically by mandating vaccines, by mandating a vaccine passport. Businesses, it kind of goes back to that earlier question. So, just to reiterate again, so where do we go when it comes to those fine lines between personal freedoms, parental choices, and those afraid of COVID?
Well, I would think that there really is no fine line. There's the Constitution and there's free. Let me ask you this. You tell me, is there a fine line to freedom? Like, like under what part can I restrain you and you say, well, I'm just kind of like half free?
Yeah, that's a great point. That's a great point.
Well, so that's what I would tell you. I mean, look, I think that we have proven again and again in this country that when we educate our population and when we tell them about the dangers, and then when we give people an opportunity, hey, listen, I'm afraid of COVID. Okay, well, fine. Guess what? These are things that you can do that are going to greatly, that we believe will greatly diminish your ability to contract the virus.
Right.
You can do these things. These are things you do.
Right.
But don't mandate that everybody does it just because you may be in that particular position.
Exactly.
That's not freedom. That's saying, I want to have mental freedom, okay? In other words, I want to feel like I'm free to do whatever I want because I'm concerned about a virus while I restrict everybody else.
Right.
Why take away freedoms from everybody else in order for me to feel good?
Exactly.
That's not freedom.
Yeah, it's not. And that's what a lot
And
of
then
people
who gets
do.
to make that choice?
Yeah.
See, somebody has to make that choice,
Right. Exactly.
right?
Yeah. I know people personally that are they're Second Amendment people. They really believe in that Second Amendment, but they're so fearful of COVID that they are okay with you losing some of your freedoms or forcing you to give up some of your freedoms so that it helps them with their fears. In the meantime, I've had to tell them, well, then you can't really say you're a Second Amendment person because you can't pick and choose freedom.
But I thought
like
we
you
were,
said.
But I thought we were Americans who had nothing to fear but fear itself. Somebody said that.
Exactly.
I mean, I thought that's what I thought. It was interesting because there was a gentleman. Oh, I wish I could bring it to mind who he was, who toured the United States in the late 1800s, who wrote an essay on America. Oh, he was a famous author. And he said what struck him was the fact that everywhere he went, there was never fear on anyone's face, that Americans were the most courageous, that they were just people who knew no boundaries, who could do almost anything. Why? Because they were just so fearless. I mean, like, when did we? Okay, well, it's a virus. You're right. Okay, yeah, you could die from it. You could die from getting in your car.
Right.
I mean, you could die from a lot of different things.
Exactly.
But I tell you what I do know. I do know that if you are healthy and you eat healthy, and you reduce the amount of comorbidities you have, and you exercise regularly, every time you check any of those particular boxes, this is out there. You can go look at it. You reduce the chances of you succumbing to the virus. Okay. So if you fear it, then go fix it.
Yeah.
Fix what you fear.
Exactly. You know what I like about what you're saying, and I just want to point this out to our listeners, is that while we've talked about, you know, the fears and ideologies of COVID, it all keeps coming back to something that I love seeing that's on your mind, which is freedom, which is personal freedom, personal liberty, and that's something that I'm getting to know about you. That seems like something that's top on your priority list when it comes to our rights in not just Louisiana but our country.
Well, look, the great. We always said the greatest thing about America is that you can come from humble beginnings and achieve anything you want, whether it be riches, fame, fortune, or simply the satisfaction of being a great painter. Let's just use that for example. You can, or anything else. You could be the best plumber out there in the world and be proud of the work that you do and earn a great wage for that because that's what you like to do. Well, in some kind of fashion now, that the only way that you can allow people to come from a humble beginning and achieve that, the biggest obstacle is restriction of freedom.
Correct.
The less freedom, the more freedom you take away from a person, especially someone from humble beginnings, the less ability for them to excel happens.
Right. Exactly.
So you destroy the middle class.
Right. That's kind of what these restrictions in New Orleans are going to do. On a microcosm of our country, is that, you know, those people that in those areas where their freedoms are limited, their businesses won't excel, people will lose jobs, people will lose incomes. Yeah, where they got their freedom.
Well, no, or to move to Texas,
yeah.
which is what everybody always says the problem with the Louisiana. We losing all of our young people. Well, I guess so.
Yeah.
We locking everybody down.
Right.
But yeah, these are the same people that want to let everybody out of jail.
Right.
They don't want to lock nobody up who breaks the law.
Right.
They want to lock, innocent people into their homes because of a virus. Instead of educating, instead of praising doctors, instead of praising nurses, instead of saying, look, we want to give the medical field all the tools necessary, do whatever it is, we got trust in you.
Right.
No, they want to say, listen, these are the only things you can do. You go mask up, shut up, and take what we say.
Well, I do have another question about BesSIE board. BesSIE had their meeting last week, and they shut it down, and any comments on BesSIE?
Yeah, it certainly was disappointing. I mean, that certainly was not a democratic process. I mean, we're supposed to be a government of the people.
Yeah.
Right? The government is supposed to represent the people. And yet, BesSIE could not find a way to hold a particular meeting.
Right.
Not respect the rights of those that wanted to be heard. And so, look, yeah, it's troubling. I mean, anytime that we get a government board unable to conduct its business is problematic. It says that something's wrong.
Right.
Right? When you get that amount of people over at the BesSIE meeting, that means the government has done something that has struck a nerve.
Right.
And those people should at least have some redress.
Exactly.
At least have the ability to be heard.
Their freedoms.
Those BesSIE members love to be heard.
Yeah.
By the way.
Right. Exactly.
So I mean, they should respect their constituents. It's just disappointing. It really is.
Those people didn't have their freedoms exercised.
Well, I mean, they just didn't have the ability to air out their grievances and then have BesSIE make a decision. BesSIE just wanted to pass the buck. The easy thing to do is to cancel the meeting.
So in wrapping up a little bit, I want to give you the opportunity to have any final words or final things that you want to tell the people of Louisiana and people, listeners on the show. What do you want to say that you might not have been asked?
No, look, I think we've covered a range of things. I just would say to the people of Louisiana that we at the Department of Justice consistently work for you. We work to protect your liberties. We work to protect your businesses. We unfortunately don't have a magic wand where we can fix all of those particular grievances. A lot of the things that are irritating people today, the only really magic wand exists in Baton Rouge in the Capitol, amongst your legislators who legislate. We just execute or defend or uphold the laws that they pass. And so I appreciate the time you've given me, and hope people have a greater understanding of who we are and what we do here at the Department of Justice.
I appreciate that. I appreciate your time too,
All
Jeff.
right.
I really
Okay.
do. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
And look, if there's any ever any updates to let people know, please reach out to me and let me know. And everybody who's listening, please share the video on Facebook and social media. But even better yet, please also share the podcast, because this will be podcast also. So if you don't want to watch, you can just listen in your car on the way to work. Thank you all very much, and have a great day. Hang on a second.